Welcome back to another episode of the Bear Trap on the Boom and Bust channel, Bears podcast by a Bears fan. I'm your host Terry, and today we're recapping our Detroit Lions matchup on Thanksgiving Day. The second time in 3 weeks that we played the Detroit Lions, and it is a Bears victory. Bear down, another divisional win, swept the Lions, all that good stuff. Let's start here though with a couple things. Number one, it's very upsetting to see the NFL give us this really short turnaround. Now, scheduling is hard, but they have the tools to do it. If you ever want something fun, this is just kind of side note, try to put together an NFL schedule on your own. Like, I've done it once, it's just a thought exercise. It is, and I couldn't finish. It's super hard. But even with that being said, you do have a lot of things you have to balance, but they've never had a year where they gave someone such a short turnaround. I've heard that being said. I don't know if that's confirmed, but I think this is the shortest turnaround. They flexed our game, so we originally in the schedule weren't supposed to have this short week. But the Bears are doing good, so now they want to flex our game to Sunday night prime time against the Vikings. And then that in turn gave us a Sunday night turnover to the number one game on Thanksgiving Day, which to me was silly. Going into it, I kind of thought that we would have the later game or they would switch it or something. But I was really upset to find out we had the first game before noon. So now not only do we have the first game after Sunday night, this game is earlier than the normal start time of an NFL weekend game. So just absolutely ridiculous in my opinion. I think you could kind of see some of the effects within the overall game plan. I think everybody pretty much had energy, and I think having Mitch out kept everybody on their toes to really, perform. So there's that, but it's just not fair. I don't think that should ever be a case. And if you're going to flex a team, which you have the right to do to flex their game, then you need to make sure that you're not doing it at a time where they're going to be, handicapped because they have to turn around and do a short week. That's just not healthy. It's, they talk so much about player safety, and then you turn around and do stuff like that. So it's just upsetting. But anyway, with that out of the way, what was this game? This game was Chase Daniels coming in for Mitch Trubisky. I was on the move yesterday, so I didn't have a chance to sit down and record anything, and I didn't really know if I should. There wasn't much to say. Like, Mitch is out and Chase is in. We would just kind of go like that, and we haven't seen Chase play since the offseason, or the preseason. So it wasn't, a whole bunch to talk about. If you saw the graphic in, for him today, I think he thrown less than 600 yards in his career. So it's not a whole bunch of tape. It's not a whole bunch to talk about. It's just, next man up mentality. So we had, Chase come in and start for the Bears. So all eyes was on him. All eyes was on the defense as they were expected to carry the team. And I think Detroit played into our hand very much early on. You saw a lot of what they did the first game, which was that underneath dink and dunk short game, and it didn't get them much. They tried to run a little bit, but they tried to throw short, and it just kind of became a field position battle where they would get a couple yards, punt it into a good spot, play defense, we would punt it, and we kept going back and forth trying to get the better field position, and that played into the defense's hand because, like I said, when we could keep it in front of us, when you're not really spreading us out, when you're not really threatening the speed down the field, that's when our corners are the best, and that's when our front seven is the best. So, and they had Kerryon Johnson, so it kind of worked out that way. Now for for our offense early on, it was just, I think we were getting a little too cute. Like, we went screen crazy, which is interesting. The Detroit front, they can move and they're aggressive, but I wouldn't say they're like the Vikings. The Vikings is one where I was like, okay, they're going to flow hard to what you show them, and you can misdirect them and catch them off guard. I understand that. That concept today, it didn't make much sense to me because they were kind of all staying pat. Especially the secondary, like they were all staring pat. And so all the smoke screens, all the quick ones, it just didn't really do much early on. And it was like we were trying to stretch them and do all this stuff when I'm like, we really could just run the ball. And we did not run the ball much at all in the first half. But then eventually, we started making some plays, making some, big catches, moving down the field, and so did Detroit. And I think we just really got into a good game. The defense, for whatever reason, I think I wouldn't say they lack focus. It was one play where they got us, and I wouldn't even say we lacked focus. It was that big play to Galladay where he streaked across the field into, Roquan Smith's territory. I wouldn't even say they got us or we lost focus. It was just a big play. And from there, I think our momentum kind of spiraled out, and the Detroit in the second half, and Tony Romo mentioned it, they started to look more like us, or more like modern NFL teams. Like I said before with Nagy, it's going to be a lot of motion. It's going to be a lot of motion. It's going to be a lot of misdirection, because that's just what offense is, or that's what people think good offense is. And so, Tony Romo mentioned that they're not doing a lot of that. And then in the second half, they came out, and to Jim Bob Cooter's credit, he really adjusted, and you can see it really messed us up. And I said it, a few weeks ago. It's just that, when you try to go straight up and keep it all in front of us, we're going to be good. It's the spread it out teams. It's the teams that are going to be more, attacking the field that are going to give us trouble. And I don't think Detroit has the receiving core anymore to do that consistently, but the misdirection helps out a lot. So you get all these bunch sets, you get these stack sets, you get receivers with the delayed release, receivers cutting across the middle, and all these flood concepts that flood in different areas, the miscommunication in the back secondary, all those things that we do on offense, they start to do to us. And as I said, that's the type of offense that's going to give us problems. And you can see that it was causing people to be a lot more open. Now, what ended up saving us was Stafford making some bad decisions, but also us making some good plays. And that's just kind of how it shook down, because at the end we stopped them, but we were only up because of that pick six by Eddie Jackson. So, realistically, it could have been a tie game, and it really could have been overtime. It almost was, but it really could have been overtime had we not got that pick six. So, just kind of what it was. And it was a back and forth game. And yeah, so, it was a good game, but we pulled out the win. So, going to the defense specifically, again, a lot of the same stuff I saw. The one thing I will say that I have been seeing, but I haven't really talked about, is that we do so many stunts in games and twists on the D-line. And it kind of annoys me. Again, people want to keep arguing me about the pass rush. To me, honestly, if you watch today, I don't see how you could debate it. At home without the noise, like Detroit was a lot more sound in picking our stuff up, but it's when we blitz and we do the different things that we get more pressure. And that's the sign of a team that just doesn't have a straight up great pass rush. But anyway, that besides the point, is that we stunt a lot. Not stunt, we twist and play games a lot. And a lot of it is Khalil Mack, slanting inside and having somebody either looping around from the other side or having a linebacker loop on a blitz or whatever it is. And I'm not sure I like that so much, because Khalil Mack is a monster. He's your best pass rusher. I would say if you're going to do that, let Leonard Floyd loop or somebody on the other side, and let Khalil Mack take the outside rush, because he's the best at it. And I get the concept. It's like, okay, he's going to crash in. That's going to cause a lot of attention, and that's going to make the outside open. I get that. And early on it worked in the first few games where like he would crash inside sometimes. People weren't ready because they were trying to protect the edge and he made plays. But now people are ready for it. And we do it so much. I swear it's like every other play. And so people know that it's coming. And so when he slants in, people are like, oh, he's getting triple teamed. Well, yeah, you're going to protect the inside, especially with Khalil Mack. And then whoever loops around, you're going to take your chances with them on the edge because it's not Khalil Mack. But when Khalil Mack gets to go one-on-one on the edge, or if you play the stunt inverse where somebody else pins in and he loops outside, I think Khalil Mack is more effective. So I would like to see Fangio do that a little more. But that's one of the things I noticed. Again, we saw with Blunt and a couple other people coming up that middle, man. I think people are going to see that on tape. And, we are really good at being in our gaps. We're really solid at stopping the run. It's those straight up power plays or those, trap plays. So you got somebody kicking out, or you leave one guy on the D-line unblocked, somebody kicks him out, and then the guy that left him goes up to the linebacker, and it's tough. It's tough. Or you get a double team to the linebacker, it's tough. So that, again, as good as we are, as solid as we are, though, that is one of the things that I continue to see. And I think when you get to the playoffs, people have time to prepare and they're going to look. People are going to see that. And so we just got to be ready as Trevathan and Roquan to take on that, take on those blocks because they're going to get attacked. People know they can run and cover, but people also are probably going to start seeing that they have problems with power. And so while we play really good on the edge, that's one thing I give Aaron Lynch, Leonard Floyd, Khalil Mack, all of them good at setting the edge. We good at bottling it up, but when it comes through the middle, we can get exposed a little bit. And so that's just the nature of an odd front for me, honestly. Honestly, I think that'll be cleaned up whenever we are in nickel or if we go with an even front. But, yeah, that's just kind of one thing I noticed. Eddie Jackson, man, the secondary period, I said this last week and I'm really starting to double down on it. I appreciate Cowful and Prince way more than I should. And you know what? It's easy to fall into that trap. And I see why people argue with me about pass rush because that's what you see. A lot of times you just see, okay, who made this play or whatever, who rushed the passer, who got a sack, blah, blah, blah. And it's hard for you to understand that, okay, this safety moved here or this corner did this, and that's why it caused the play to do this. Because they don't show you that. And you don't, unless you have coaches tape all 22, you don't see that stuff. Now, me knowing football, being around tape, I understand how those things can look. I understand the look in the quarterback's eyes when it's a coverage thing and not a pressure thing. But some people don't, and I get that. And so, but there's times when they show you the play, you're like, oh, that's why that happened. Yeah, nobody was open. Or that safety made a good play, or that corner made a good play. And so I get wrapped up in that too a lot, where there's times when you see the corners, kind of like offensive linemen. A lot of times when they highlight them is when they make a big play or they make a bad play. And so a lot of times you see them getting burnt or beat, but you don't see those, 100 other plays where they're actually playing good defense. And so I am starting to recognize and, understand more and more that these guys, again, they're not world beaters. They're not Patrick Peterson, but they're smart and they're good at what they do. And we had, it was a 3rd and short early on in the game and they play action for whatever reason and tried to pass it. And that I think encapsulates how smart we are because Prince and Kyle, even though they're up on the line, everybody's ready for a power run, they still understood their assignment and they were still physical enough to take away those routes on a play action 2-man route where he had to dump it down underneath to the late releaser and they missed and we got off the field. So it's just things like that allow our pass rush to go. They allow us to really, stifle, non-explosive teams. Now, against explosive teams, I'm more than likely sure they're not going to look as great, but we got to give them a lot of credit. Eddie Jackson, as I mentioned earlier, I've been saying, you know what? Eddie Jackson, coming out of college, he didn't have a lot of tape. He had a lot of injury, especially senior year. And I like to look at the most recent tape. So I don't like to go backwards if you listen to my draft stuff. And so he didn't have a lot of tape his last year. But the stuff I saw in the notes on him was pretty much he's an athletic guy who, and from what I saw, he wanted no part of the run game, which is a lot of safeties in college. And so, okay, he's got a lot of athleticism, and his big thing was returning. Many people not remember this. He was a big time punt returner and kick returner for Alabama. And so his thing was explosiveness, ability to run after the catch. And I think he was a foreign receiver too. So to me, I'm just like, okay, I'm taking all this in from what I saw. And I'm like, yes, does he have the athletic potential to make big plays and have good ball skills? Yes. But hundreds of guys have the potential. It's about how it, flourishes out. How does that potential meet your technique? And his technique wasn't good. That's just, we could cheer him now, but it wasn't good coming out of college. And so, especially with Nick Saban. Now, the thing, that's a two-edged sword. I always felt Eddie Jackson, benefited from being an Alabama player. A lot of Alabama players, they know how to work hard. They understand competition, all those good things. Now, the other side of that is you're well coached. And so a lot of people will tell you Alabama players are, ceiling players. Or basically high floor players, it's been a while. Peak players. There we go. Those are players with high floors that pretty much won't get better because they've been coached like NFL players. That's what a lot of people see Bama players are. And so Nick Saban as a secondary guru, it was hard to say, okay, Eddie Jackson coming out of Bama, a lot of potential to take good coaching, but he's had good coaching and he's not a good safety. And so that worried me. And then I really don't like safeties that don't know how to play the run. And it showed in his first year. And so I I had him as like a project or, kind of middle road prospect. And he went, later in the rounds. It wasn't like he's a first round pick, but I would say he definitely got better in the run. There's still some tackling issues like we saw today. But that athleticism is definitely there. And the one thing that you can't teach is that aggressive instinct, that ability to gamble on a play, to see it and go. And some players can see it and don't have the athletic ability to go. Some people have the athletic ability to go and just don't see the plays develop. Some people have both and just don't have the heart to pull the trigger. He has all three. And that combined with good coaching, combined with him wanting to get better, he has become a much better safety than I gave him credit for coming out of college, which is fine. That's part of it. You got to grow. And I would say he's grown. He's done his part. I've been praising him all year for his improvement. And we continue to see it today where, he is going to be pretty strong in coverage, but he's going to be a ball hawk. And he might not ever be the hitter, but he'll be a ball hawk and that'll be his calling card. So, there we go. Again, with the defense, we had pretty good time of possession. So you can't really blame it on offense. You can't blame it on offense today. We saw the defense have some struggles, and this was the same team that we had a few weeks ago. So we're not going to act like the defense is perfect, but I think we definitely had a solid showing. It's going to be a question about matchup. How are we going to do with these teams that are more adept at spreading us out and, making it look cute like our offense does? So that's what I'm thinking about. So as far as today though, for the defense, I give them a B-. Offensively, Chase Daniels. Here's the thing, and I'm sure this is not gonna go over well, which is fine. I personally didn't see much difference between Mitch Trubisky. And I will say Mitch Trubisky has much better running talent. Chase Daniel can move for a quarterback, but he's not Trubisky. Trubisky not only is faster, but he has a willingness to run, and he just understands how to run. He understands how to run like a running back. He has good vision. And so there's definitely that ability to extend the play, to move the pocket, that people are in love with this day because of Aaron Rodgers. And there's that ability with Trubisky that Daniel doesn't have. Outside of that, I'm not sure what's so different, because you saw it and people were saying, I'm going to see, is this scheme or is this the quarterback? Everybody's like, is it the system that's working or is it the quarterback that's working? We're finally going to find out. I don't think you know what? I always say the only way to direct apples to apples compare a quarterback is to be in the same system with the same weapons. So I understand I've said that. I can't say though Trubisky versus Daniel is a direct comparison, just because, he doesn't prepare to be the starter. He prepares, but it was a short week, all these factors, whatever. They're different quarterbacks. If you had to stack them up, I would say, yes, I'll take Trubisky. But my point in looking at it, I think, again, with our receiving core, that's the biggest thing. People might say Nagy, the system, whatever. I think it's the weapons. I think it's the personnel. And I said it last week. I think we have one of the better cores because we don't have superstar power. We have power between everybody. And so we can go to multiple weapons in a game. Now, Allen Robinson, I think, is more of a star than we're giving credit for, especially with that early injury, because we knew he's a big target as far as 50-50 balls. But man, he's burning people. And he's burnt some people. And he didn't burn Slay today, but he got steps on Slay. So he's moving a lot faster than I expected. And you still see the 50-50 ball. Like, he has great ball skills. That was one of my top rated things when he came out of college. Still has it. Great ball skills, can attack the ball. But man, he can move. He can move a lot faster than I think I would have gave him credit for coming into this year with an ACL or coming off an ACL. And so he can be, I think, more of a guy that we could force it to. But that's besides the point. We got a lot of guys. Anthony Miller, Gabriel got to eat today. Burton didn't have a great game, but still, like I've been saying with Tariq Cohen, we got weapons. And so while we could talk about Chase Daniel, he had good velocity. Usually that's the one thing backup quarterbacks. They don't have good velocity, and so their passes are late. But we could talk about, his ability to throw and read the field. We could talk about the system and what it does. I think having these guys, because, the route concepts are good, the motion, all that's good. But I think having guys that can get in and out of breaks, that can flood the field immediately, makes these passes so much more clear. Tariq Cohen's good too, because you have him on these fake screens or Miller on these fake screens, and you see the safety or the nickel just fly to them in Detroit. Fly down to them. I'm telling you, as a coach and as a quarterback, that makes it 100 times easier. When they declare what they're doing and they move and vacate a space, it makes it so much easier because you know where your receivers are going to be. And once they vacate that space, you know who's going to be open. And so as a quarterback, I just think it just makes it a lot more easier for you. And so, yes, your throwing ability, decision making, all that's got to be there. And for the record, I think Chase Daniels has better ball placement than Mitch. All that's got to be there, but I just think our personnel is really the reason that's carrying everything. Because you can go to so many people and they present so many threats to the point where they have to play off coverage on us a lot, and we can do the quick out routes, the quick whips, and anything else. We flood the field in so many areas, which is big. You got to have protection to do it. But when you flood the deep, you flood the flat, you flood the middle, that it's hard to defend because the defense has to give up something. If they're rushing 4 people, they got to give up something. If they're rushing 5 people, they're definitely giving up something. And so when you flood those areas and you got guys that can get there fast, it makes the defense have to stretch itself, and it kind of gives you a clear vision of who's open and who's not. And so I think that was the biggest part. Now, our run game, we need to get that together. That's the one thing I'm scared about, and I'm not scared. I'm nervous about it in the playoffs. I'm not scared because I know if we line up, play tough, and hand it to Jordan Howard, he's going to be effective. And I just don't know that Nagy wants to do that, and I don't know that he's going to do that. I know we can do it, though. So I'm not scared. I'm just nervous that we will wait to the last second to get into that type of stuff. When I think you can be early on, you can be cute, but I definitely think early on when you go on no huddle, that's definitely the time to do it, because you're going to rip off a big run, people off kilter. They're trying to rush in a nickel, they're trying to spread it out, and then you line up tight and stuff it down their throat with Jordan Howard. I think you can really rip off some good runs, build the confidence, and make them think about the power game. And that's all you need. You just need them to think about the power game. Because, as we saw today, when you think about the power game, especially up the gut, that's when all the play actions and all the other stuff opens up. And so I think early on is the time to do it. I'm not saying line up most downs in I formation like we used to, but I'm saying you got to put it in there early on to establish, hey, we can move this line of scrimmage. And I just don't think Nagy's going to do that, but that makes me nervous because in the playoffs, you got to do that. Especially if we're going to be in our weather. All the stuff we do, like I said, the misdirection motions, it's not going to be as effective. So, something I want to look forward to, definitely. But yeah, overall, good game. I think the receivers did a pretty good job. Again, Burden didn't have the best of game, whatever. I think Daniels, even though they kind of reined him in early and he was doing a lot of underneath stuff like the Lions were doing, I think he eventually got comfortable. And the only thing with Daniel is that I would say he waits too long, like most quarterbacks, but most quarterbacks are backups are not in the league. You wait to see the play wide open and then deliver. That's going to kill you. I think he's a little more decisive because he knows the system, but I can still see he waits a little too long for the play to develop. He doesn't anticipate the throws. So that could be an issue. But overall, man, I think this game told us it ain't Trubisky or Daniel, it's the personnel for me personally. That's weird. But anyway, so as a grade, I get an offensive B+. And special teams was all straight. So yeah, solid win. Just got to keep getting better, keep scheming. I think I would like to see our defensive scheme change a little bit as far as our pass rush and our D-line, and let Mac get after it a little more. But yeah, I think we're definitely solid. Definitely solid. That's one thing I will say. Last thing I'll say though, a lot of people talked about the Mac versus Aaron Donald debate this week. Look, this is what I'll say. Are they both elite players? Yes. No question about it. Both elite players, both can do elite things. Can you go wrong with either one? Not at all. Which one I think is better? It's Aaron Donald. I mean, it's Aaron Donald. And it's tough. It's tough. I think it would definitely depend on a more specific context of what the question is. But if you're just talking about in general, I gotta go Aaron Donald because, and again, some people are like, oh, well, 0-100. If you don't think he's better, then you think he sucks. No, that's not the case. They're both elite. Happy we have Mac. I just think Aaron Donald's a little better. I mean, as a guy that played D-line, coached D-line, that's my first love, all that. And don't get it twisted. Mac is a glorified, D-lineman. It's Aaron Donald, and because he has a little more explosiveness, and you might not think that based off the way they look, but he has a little more explosiveness. What they both have is great hand play, They have great ability to bend around the edge, and they both understand, which is you would never guess this, but this is the number one thing that separates a good defensive lineman from a bad one. And that is, they both have the mentality to keep moving towards the quarterback. You talk about Aaron Lynch, anybody else to get stalemate. A lot of people will run into a block and stop and want to look to move around or around the blocker, or they want to look to jump up and bat the ball or whatever, or they just give up. When you continually move your hands and feet towards the quarterback and continue to work towards the quarterback, you're going to make plays just off that alone. And I'm telling you, majority of players do not have that instinct. And that is the one thing that separates those two from a lot of people. So I would go slightly Aaron Donald, but I love Khalil Mack. Absolutely. So anyway, good Thanksgiving win. Bear down. We'll be back at it again next week. Happy Thanksgiving to everybody out there. Hopefully you're enjoying Thanksgiving, some turkey with friends, family, all that. Football. Watch the rest of the games. Be thankful for everybody you got. Be thankful that we have our Bears win, lose, draw, or tie. Bears fans till we die. So remember, stay up and bear down.